Heroes of Fantasy Football Podcast.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome into another episode of the Heroes of Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Hine, joined by Chris and Rich. On today's show, we're going to talk about the best position in the history of football, especially for fantasy football, the running backs. We're talking about the 2025 NFL prospects, looking at the rookie drafts, getting set. Speaking of your dynasty teams, we are still running that contest. I want to make sure everyone knows. All you got to do to enter this contest to win a full dynasty roster review from all of us here at the podcast is go into the comment section below on any of our videos, and you just need to, nice and easy, think of a team name. Comment the team name. You want to add a question, we'll answer that on the show too. We're going to go through all of those, look at everyone, compile them, rank them, and then choose two of you to get the prize. So you have up until the NFL draft to do so. So please go in that comment section, post that name, like, share, and subscribe. Really helps us out on the podcast here. Without further ado, gentlemen, I say we just dive right in because there's a lot of discussion to have on the rookie running backs. So, Ashton Jeanty, 101 in most of your leagues. He is out of Boise State. 5'9", 211 pounds. In 2024, he had 313 rush attempts for 2,300 yards, 28 touchdowns, 18 receptions for just over 100 yards, and a 7.3 yards per carry. Is there any situation either of you sees that he is not the 101? Whether it's Superflex, single QB, you get negative points for running backs. I mean, I don't think any situation exists, but Chris, what do you think?
I'm doing the Doctor Strange thing where I'm like going through all the possible timelines. I'm trying to figure out, how many times he's not the 101. And unfortunately, I don't see one possibility. No, I think like the chances are like you have to have four really good running backs and they have to be young for you to not pick up Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah, you need like Bijan, Gibbs, Cook,
Right.
Taylor, Brees Hall. You need everyone.
Yeah.
What about you, Rich?
Yeah, no, it's I agree with Chris, man. I mean, it's Genty is the 101. It's clear cut. I mean, the only way it's only if like a team doesn't have any quarterbacks and they have all the running backs, so that's the only way that
Which
you're getting Genty at the 102.
Might I say, if you are one of those lucky few, trade
God
your
bless.
pick. Like,
Yeah.
why wouldn't you trade? Like I always feel like people are like, oh my god, I'm gonna pick a white. Like, no, trade that thing, dude. You're gonna get like you're gonna absolutely rip someone off with that 101 that you don't need. Like, absolutely. Sorry, I digress.
Looking right now at Keep Trade Cut, Ashton Jeanty is the equivalent of Patrick Mahomes, Drake May, Justin Herbert, Caleb Williams. That's a lot of value. So if you do not need a running back, those are the kind of players you can get.
1 for 1 or like all of
Yeah,
them
1 for 1. Yeah, 1 for 1.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Yeah.
Good. I got really worried.
No. If you can get that done, if you go to the team and get that done, I mean, please put in the comments. We want to see that because dynasty trades are crazy. Dynasty managers sometimes we're nuts. We have random thoughts and we act on them. But I think with Ashton Jeanty, he just looks like the best running back in the class. There is another guy I like almost as much, not as much, but almost as much. To me, he kind of reminded me of like peak Austin Eckler with his play style. He can catch the ball. He's good on run blocking. He just kind of is the whole package. So I don't think we need to like go too crazy on him. If you have the 101, you're selecting him. There's no way I would be picking another player despite what I need. If I need a quarterback, I'm not blowing it on, Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders or anyone outside of Ashton Jeanty, because going back to the episode Chris and I did about the Dynasty draft tips, draft talent, trade for need. I'm going to hammer that in the next couple episodes because you need to understand that. It's going to help you out in your Dynasty rookie drafts. Don't just draft a guy because you need them. Draft them because they're worthy of that draft pick. All right, so I think that's all we got to say about Ashton Jeanty. So why don't we move on to our next running back is Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. 6 foot, 221 pounds, 2024 stats, 281 rush attempts, 1,600, almost 1,700 yards, 15 touchdowns, 38 receptions for 373 yards, and a 5.9 yards per carry. Now, Rich, Omarion Hampton, if you do not have the 101, but you have the 102 to 104, depending on your league, are you going quarterback or are you going with Omarion Hampton? Quarterback or wide receiver? Are you taking two running backs at the start of your draft, or are you taking one of the other positions ahead of Omarion Hampton, who consensus right now is the RB2?
I'll tell you right now, I'm actually going through that exact question. That exact scenario. I have the 102 in a league, and due to Justin Fields becoming the starting quarterback of the Jets, I have now given myself a third quarterback on my team. Granted, I have some question marks there where, I could still fill in, and Cam Ward, I think, is in my eyesight as well. But Omarion Hampton is an interesting name. I mean, from what I understand, if Genty wasn't there, we'd be talking about Omarion Hampton as if he was his own person, as if he was the clear cut guy. Yeah, so I like like from what I've seen, I like what I see. So overall, I mean, I can definitely see him in the right position on the right team being immediately effective for your fantasy team. So with the 102 on a team like mine that I need running back help, I am strongly considering, and I'm probably leaning towards taking Omarion Hampton in my league. I just don't want to give my any advice to the other league mates in that league listening in, but yeah,
Oh, they
Hampton is
are. They
strongly
are.
on my board.
Oh, they
They definitely are.
are.
I know they are. But no, Hampton is on my list. I think that's what I'm going to take with the 102. I don't think a talent like that you can give up. This is not the class for quarterbacks. This is the class for running backs. So
Oh yeah.
ride that out.
One of the things I want to kind of bring up before we go too far too is just the teams that might be looking at adding a running back, or that probably will add a running back in a day one or day two pick. We have the Raiders. I think they're number one. I think they're one of the betting favorites to get Ashton Jeanty right now. I figure the Saints might be one of those teams. The Bears definitely. Cowboys 100%. Bengals. There's two teams that I think might make a trade up to get one of these top guys here. And that would be Denver Broncos and the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's also the Chargers, Commanders, and Chiefs as being teams that will probably add depth. I don't know if they're going to take a day one or day two pick to get those, but those would be good situations, I think. So, are there any teams
Absolutely.
you're looking for that might make the trade up?
I mean, the Broncos immediately come to mind. I know that they're trying to, bolster that whole offense there. And I think Omarion being a kind of a heavy hitter to what they have as far as complementary pieces there in the running back room. I think he can easily come and slide in there as the running back one type of bell cow deal and get the job done there. I would love him to go there. The Chargers also, just because obviously with the head coach of Harbaugh being there, it's going to be a good show there. I mean, he took that small back over in the college he was coaching escapes me at the moment, Michigan, right? It took the small back and made him a power back there. So
That would be
definitely
Joe's
in his
RB1 of
wheelhouse.
last year on the Rams, which, sorry, Joe, didn't turn out so good. Blake Corum.
Yes, Blake Corum, that's right. But yeah, so it's going to be very cool to see if he can go there. Broncos is good. Raiders, I think that's the thing, right? If the Raiders do end up with Genty, and then you have Omarion going to a more salivating spot, right? So a spot that he'll get the volume or he'll get the work in. I mean, taking Genty, I feel like just becomes a little bit more of like bittersweet per se. But I mean, yet to be seen. We'll see what happens, right? Raiders can surprise us. Maybe Geno Smith is the answer.
Could be. So, Chris, Omarion Hampton, is he a good, I guess, consolation prize at the running back position this year if you don't get Ashton Jeanty?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I don't think there's, I mean, if you have the 102, 103, or 104, and you, like, there's any thought in your mind that you probably need a running back, I mean, you're looking at next year's class, and right now there's not really much going on there. There's always going to be receivers. Like, I say that like haphazardly, but there will always be like a receiver that is serviceable at best, right? That you can kind of like manage in other years. But running back is definitely probably one of the harder, besides quarterback, kind of like positions to kind of like work around. You know, tight ends are kind of always going to be a hit or miss thing. Wide receivers is like always going to be a bunch that are there. Uh, Running backs, however, it's like, they could last for a couple of years and all of a sudden go away forever, right? So I think the idea, Hampton is definitely a good sort of consolation prize. I would not be mad at all if I ended up with Hampton using a 2, 3, or 4 pick.
One last question before we move on into our next guy here. I just remember the year that it was Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Jonathan Taylor. One went to the Chiefs, and he was a first-round running back, and everyone lost their minds, going, "Oh my God, this is it! The best situation ever. He is going to be the number one running back." Jonathan Taylor at the time was the better prospect. But in your fantasy drafts, if you had the 101, you did not select Jonathan Taylor. Most people selected Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Do you see this potentially being that's a similar situation where Ashton Jeanty might go to a different? He might not be the first running back drafted off the board in the NFL draft. Would that change anything for you, or are you sticking with Ashton Jeanty no matter what situation he goes to, and then Omarion Hampton is the second piece? Rich, I want to hear from you first, and then we'll do Chris. Real quick.
I literally see the same exact comparison. It's the only thing is the Clyde Edwards-Helaire thing was great because of Kansas City, right? Whereas where Genty's overall athleticism and who he is as a person is what's personifying his draft capital there, as opposed to the team he's on. So it's how much volume. So I think it's a little bit of the same thing. Yes, just the teams are a little bit different.
Chris, for you?
I don't think I would stray from Jeanty at all. I'll be honest. That might be like the wrong choice per se. Uh, but yeah, I don't think that's the wrong choice. I think sticking with Jeanty is going to be the way to go.
All right, yeah.
No, not enough to defer. Not enough to defer me to not take Jeanty number one.
Yeah, with Omarion Hampton, I had him comp to like Chris Carson. I think he's going to be a real problem in the NFL. He's going to be really good no matter where he goes.
I can see him. I can see Omarion being a top 24 back if he goes to a team like the Broncos or the Chargers, with easily some top 5 upside. I mean, if with just the way he plays, I mean, he's a big back, so why not?
Yeah, 100%.
Agreed.
I was really impressed with this tape. So, all right, why don't we jump into our third running back here? We have TreyVeon Henderson out of Ohio State. Now, he was supposed to come out last year, decided to go back to college for his final year. 5'10", 202 pounds, so a little bit smaller. 119 rush attempts for 825 yards, 8 touchdowns, 22 receptions for 186 yards, and a 6.9 yards per carry in 2024. 4.43 40-yard dash time. It's with him. It's a lot of the receptions. He's a capable pass catching running back. I liked how he was running routes constantly. That is something I hope translates to the NFL, and I think it will, depending on the situation he goes to. I don't think he's going to be a first-round pick in the NFL draft. I think he might be a day 2 pick, which for a running back, that's perfectly fine. Sometimes you don't want them to be first-round picks just because track record. Sometimes things get weird. So I think he's going to be a really good running back. Chris, why don't you give your thoughts on TreyVeon Henderson?
I like him. I do. I have hopeful optimism for Henderson's career. No matter where he goes, I think he's in a good position. Kind of, I like the fact that he stayed back and took another year in college to develop more. I think that's a very mature choice, one that more college players should make, in my honest opinion. While yes, I know like the numbers here are nowhere near as glamorous as the first two guys that we talked about, nor is it as glamorous as the next guy as well. I still think they are solid numbers given the kind of like the team that he will probably end up being on. More than likely, kind of being this third best running back. I think I like the outlook. Like more than I feel like most people might. I'm not saying he's gonna be like prime Austin Eckler or Christian McCaffrey or anything to that extent. But like, if this guy in like 2 to 3 years ends up being your stable like top 15 running back, it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me at all. I think he definitely has like makings of the solid foundation of a player.
What about you, Rich?
So for me personally, I mean, the pick of TreyVeon Henderson, I think it's gonna, I mean, it'll determine really where he's gonna go in your rookie draft is gonna determine where he falls ultimately number one. And I feel that same way like a lot about these uh next three guys per se. I do think as far as the class goes, you have your Genty, and then you have your Hampton, and then it is I think a slight step down for these next three guys, and I believe I'd put them at the same tier overall. But like I said, where they go overall as far as their landing spot, that's going to determine a lot of it. I know for what it is, Henderson is. I'm sorry, yeah, TreyVeon Henderson is a smaller back, but Kyron Williams, Dalvin Cook kind of come to mind as far as the small things. So, um, yeah, I mean, he can definitely do well. I love the tape. I love what I saw at the combine. TreyVeon's got my head more so than, or my attention more so than the other two as far as in this bubble. But if I miss out on him, I wouldn't necessarily be upset. So the other two are still, I think, can potentially be good for your team. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, just watching his tape, he was. I do wish he had a little bit more patience, to let his blockers set up, but I think that's something that he'll get with time in the NFL. I can see him being a bell cow back for fantasy, and he's going to be one of these guys that I think will always be on the field, which is a little bit easier to predict from a fantasy perspective, just because if they're on the field, there's a chance he's going to get the ball. I don't see him being someone that gets taken out on third downs and stuff. So I think he does have some stuff to learn to acclimate, but
From what
he's going to be solid.
from what I read, sorry, I was just reading that he's actually significantly played on third downs, throughout his career. So more of a pass catching specialist too. So yeah, I mean, and if I think he can be a good flex player for your team, in the right spot.
Exactly. Chris, anything to add?
No, no.
All right. I know Chris has to jump off, but Rich and I are going to continue. So, with that, I know it stinks that Chris is going to leave, but why don't we listen to our today's sponsor, Dr. SQUATCH. Fellas, let's talk about game day rituals. You set your lineups, you get your go-to snacks, and you find a spot on the couch right in front of the big screen. But if you smell worse than a locker room after overtime, you're already taking the L. That's why we're teaming up with Dr. SQUATCH to keep you smelling like a first-round pick. Dr. SQUATCH's all-natural soaps will help you feel fresher than a rookie with 4.3 speed. And right now, you can get $10 off a purchase of $20 or more. All I got to do is click the link in the show notes below. Don't fumble this deal. Head to drsquatch.com to upgrade your shower game today. Dr. SQUATCH, because winning your league is great, but smelling like a champion is even better. All right, thanks for that. So Chris left, but me and Rich have you. Don't worry. We're going to talk about Kaleb Johnson out of Iowa next. 6'1", 221 pounds. His 2024 stats were 240 rush attempts, just over 1,500 rushing yards, 21 touchdowns, 22 receptions for 190 yards, and a 6.4 yards per carry. Now, he's a little bit on the slower side. He had a 4.57 40 time, which isn't the best, but overall, what are your thoughts on Kaleb?
Uh, Caleb, for me, I mean, I definitely, I'm a little bit more on the like outside looking in. I'm still would take the shot at him if I'm, looking at a beginning of the second kind of a pick at that point. But um, he is more just, your north south type of runner. The receiving game, I know for him is a little bit on the not their side. But as far as the metrics of him, being over 6 foot, weighing at least 220 pounds, some of those there's some running backs that are already in the NFL that have some good impressive numbers. Being that size, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, James Conner, Ramondre Stevenson. Um, so there's definitely an avenue for him for success. It's just a matter of, for me, and this is going to be a repetitive thing. It is dependent on landing spot for Caleb, as to what he's going to do in the NFL.
Yeah, with me, Kaleb Johnson, I had him comped to David Montgomery, actually. Watching him
Mm.
play, I was very
Again, yeah,
impressed. He's a
sure.
bruiser. He's a big back. He's going to be used a lot at the goal line, which is basically David Montgomery's specialty in Detroit. More of a north-south runner, so I don't see him moving, laterally too much. He doesn't really have the jukes, but you get him in space and he gone. He's got impressive speed, break tackles left and right. I mean, I wish he would try to get to the outside a little bit more, just because I think that would help his game and elevate his fantasy
Yeah.
output. But he's kind of in between the tackles. He's got excellent contact balance and really good vision once he gets to that open field. So he's one of these guys where right now he's going at the back end of the first round. Maybe he falls to the second depending on landing spots. He's someone that I don't really care where he goes. He's going to be someone I'm going to try to acquire in drafts just because I think he's got the talent. And talent usually is better than opportunity. It's not always the case. You can get caught up into, oh, he went here, that means he's going to suck, or he went here, that means he's going to be great. Sometimes it's kind of difficult to do that. So I think with him, I'm willing to take the shot that he's going to work out in the NFL, and I think he's got a pretty decent floor in my opinion. I think out the gate it's going to take him a little time. Will probably be more of a flex play, but if he goes to the right situation, I think his ceiling could be top 15. Maybe that's a little bit of a stretch. I maybe more comfortable top 24 running back. Solid RB2. There's nothing wrong with having an RB2 on your team in Dynasty. Sometimes you have RB3s only, and you're hoping for just 8 to 10 points. I think that's something he can easily do. Next guy up here, we're going to talk about Quinshon Judkins, who this is actually someone that a lot of people are really high on, and I think for good reason. 6 foot, 221 pounds, 156 rush attempts, 839 yards, 10 scores, 17 receptions for 118 yards, and a 5.4 yards per carry. A little bit faster, 4.48 40 time. Pretty good for a running back. It's not always that you're running with pads and stuff on, so I think we kind of overemphasize the 40 time on a lot of players. So, Quinshon Judkins, what do you think his fantasy ceiling is? What do you think his floor is year one?
Ooh, ceiling, I can definitely see him being, let's say a top 36 guy. Maybe with the he's I guess more well-rounded from what I understand, and might be able to just keep himself on the field more often than not. So I don't think you're going to see much of him, or what can be a reliable starter at first. But overall, I still think he's got good game. So yeah, I definitely I can see him maybe in a year or two helping you out in the flex spot for sure. But as far as his low spot, yeah, I think he could really burn you this season. So I would tread lightly with him.
Yeah, I mean, I liked his tape overall. I did see a couple concerns for me. I mean, I think he's going to be one of the guys that's going to rise in as we get closer and closer to the draft, just because I think he's just that kind of player. Um, He's more of your prototypical running back where they don't do anything amazing, but they don't do anything really bad. I think he did have some struggles holding on to the ball, but a lot of that, I mean, we're Giants fans. Tiki Barber had the same problem. Then he fixed it, and then he was great. So it's just kind of sometimes it's just how it works. Chris Carson was the same way. Couldn't hold on to the ball, but it didn't matter because when he had the ball in his hands and didn't fumble it, he was amazing. So that's going to be kind of, I think, his ceiling. But if he goes to the right system with the right coach, the right offensive mind, I think he can be used at his strengths more often than not. Which at his strengths, he's pretty darn good. So, next guy up here, I want to talk about Cam Skattebo out of Sacramento State. 5'10", 215 pounds, 248 rushing attempts, 1,400 yards, 17 touchdowns, 35 receptions for 468 yards, and averaged 5.6 yards per carry. Now he had a 4.48 40 time, which he's pretty quick. He did well on agility drills. Right now he's a mid to late second round pick. I have seen him closer to the third in drafts currently. It's gonna be interesting where he goes because I do think he has a really good skill set. I think he's going to do well in the NFL. It just depends on what team is going to draft him. Do they have a proven player ahead of him, or would he be going into more of a not bell cow role? Because I don't know if he'd be into that right away, but I think he could develop into that. Similar to Chase Brown last year, where he was drafted, didn't really do a whole lot, and then midway through the season just kind of took over because he was the better running back. That's the similar situation I see with him in the NFL in his rookie year. What say you about Cam Skattebo?
So I personally really do like Cam Skattebo. I think that in the right type of scheme, like let's say the Kansas City Chiefs, he can really thrive. The boy's got good balance and he's got good contact to kind of the collision there and then getting or keeping himself on his feet. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I'm reading here according to for Pro Football Focus, he's second in the FBS behind only Ashton Jeanty with 4 missed tackles. So he's good on his feet, and that in the NFL will get you into the end zone, and off of these broken plays that'll leave a lot of us fantasy players shaking our heads or our faces in our palms. So in a right scheme, I don't ever see him going to be per se a bell cow. I think he's going to be that piece that's coming around from the jet sweep reverse, or something of that nature where you don't exactly expect him, but he will have only one man to beat, and he will beat that man to the end zone. So on a solid defense, I'm sliding all my chips in on Cam Skattebo.
Yeah, I think he's going to be one of those value running backs that you can get towards the end of your
Solid
drafts.
offense, I meant to say.
Yeah, I mean, if he's playing defense, good for him. But
Yeah.
he's got a really low center of gravity. I mean, 5'10", 215 pounds. It's a lot of weight in a smaller guy. Not smaller, but you know what I mean. I do think he's got a pretty high ceiling, but also do think he's got a pretty low floor. Just because I don't know if he's going to be the immediate RB1 of his team. It might take him time, so he might be more of a sophomore year running back that you can get this year and just kind of sit on. I mean, those happen all the time. They get drafted into a situation, then the main running back falls out of favor. They cut him or just decide not to use him. Miles Sanders, and then the next guy up ends up taking the job. So that's kind of the situation I'm envisioning with him as he enters into the NFL. So, but I think he's worth a pretty good pick. So he's one of my targets if I had picks, which I don't, sadly.
You know where I would really like him on, just real quick? The Ravens. Having Derrick Henry there. I know there's a lot of run game prowess already with Lamar and Derrick, but you have to account so much for them that now you have this leaky guy coming out the side, right? That it's just I think it can work out so well. So even if you went to somewhere where you would be discouraged due to what you would think would be Lamar taking away work from him and Derrick Henry. Still, I just see him in a role where he's not supposed to be your RB2. He's supposed to be your flex, but that upside is 2 touchdowns, one being early and one in garbage time in the fourth quarter, and you're sitting there looking pretty at the end of the game, you know? So
Yeah.
I like Skattebo.
My favorite landing spot, I think, would be the Commanders.
Hmm.
I would like that.
Somewhere where he's not the main guy. He just needs to be a complimentary 1-2 punch, and I think you got it.
Yeah, exactly. Similar to, the Lions, and look how that worked out this year. Pretty good.
Exactly.
So, next guy up here, we're going to talk about Devin Neal out of Kansas. 5'11", 213 pounds, 218 rush attempts for just under 1,300 yards and 16 scores, 26 receptions for 266 yards, and averaged 5.8 yards per carry. Now, a little bit on the slower side, 4.58 40 time, not the worst. Again, 40 times, we put too much emphasis on it. With him, he's more of a guy that he's your typical running back. He's not going to do anything fantastic, but he's going to get the job done. And that's kind of what I saw on film more often than not. I think he's going to go into a team that has an established running back and just kind of sit behind him, or be used like a 1-2 punch as he gets acclimated. But if he goes to the Steelers or maybe the Rams, where they already have a guy, I mean, maybe not so much the Steelers. If they don't trade up, this could be the kind of running back that they would get. And if that happens, and Jalen Warren's stock rises through the roof, so sell him. But even still, I think he's more of a long game player where you're selecting him in drafts this year at a value, hoping his value next season or beyond increases, and then you can either flip him for another position that you need, another player, something like that. So I get taking him this year. I would. But you just have to kind of go in knowing it's probably not going to be a rookie year running back that you're like, oh my God, I'm so glad I drafted him. You got to be patient. So is that kind of the vibe you got from Devin Neal here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more on the outside of Devin Neal. I don't think I'm really looking his way much, but a team looking for a running back with ball security. I know that he's up there. 4 fumbles on 760 career carries as far as his college, career carries there. So definitely a good guy to have if you're concerned about that. I mean, I know Patriots have some concerns there. Nonetheless, it's not a player I'm really interested in, really.
Alrighty. Next couple guys, I just want to mention them. They're going to be potential values in your draft. Baishol Tootin. Again, I probably butchered that name and I apologize, but out of North Carolina, 5'9", 206. Had over 1,100 yards, almost 1,200 yards and 15 scores last year. Had a 4.32 40.
I did
What's that?
read with him that he did clock a 4.32 40 time. Was that
Yes,
correct?
he did. Yeah, and a 4.41 shuttle. So he's shifty and he's quick.
Bad.
So
Yeah.
he's going to be someone that could be one of these guys that you get late in drafts that have an immediate impact in the NFL and for fantasy. You can get him. I mean,
Player
right
that
now,
you could
he's
player
like
with
back
a
in the
floor
second,
of
early third.
0, but a ceiling of a RB1.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be a guy that you can get super late that just immediately starts with, kind of like a powder keg. I mean, he's just, if he goes off, you got something, and his stock increases tremendously. Or you could flame out. I mean, he's got a really wide range of outcomes, but overall, I did like his tape. I think he could be one of these guys that goes to the team and ends up taking over, getting a significant role, because the days of the bell cow running back are almost gone. It doesn't seem like that's the MO for most of these offenses. They want to have a 2 running back system. Some have 3 running back systems just to keep everyone fresh. It's all about what you can do with the opportunity you have. And he's someone that I can see making the most of that opportunity, in which case he's going to get more. I mean, that's kind of the way we talk about with wide receivers, targets are an earned stat. Well, running back attempts and snaps are earned on all of these offenses. They're not just going to give them to you. You got to earn them in practice and, with what you can do on the field. And I think he's going to be one of those guys that can do that. So anything to add on him before we move on to the next couple guys?
I think you pretty much hit, everything there that I wanted to say.
Alrighty. Great minds think alike. What can I say? We got Trevor Etienne out of Florida, 5'9", 198 pounds, so a little bit on the smaller side. 95 rush attempts for 477 yards and 7 scores. 23 receptions, though, so that's somewhat elevated. This is the brother to Travis Etienne, 4.42 40 time, so a little bit quicker. I wasn't really overly impressed with his tape. It didn't seem like he did a ton. He wasn't the main focal point of the offense, which in college, I kind of like the running backs having more of a foothold on opportunities. But what are your thoughts on Etienne?
I think he's just really a slower version of his brother. That's really what I've taken away from everything. I know that he's working his way in, but just from what I've seen and what I've read, it doesn't really impress me. Other than maybe a little bit of that, yards after catch ability, but still, third down back. That's about it. So I don't know.
Agreed.
Good luck.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's worth a pick because those backs
Sure.
have value, especially in a PPR league. But on as far as predictability and reliability for fantasy, I just don't see it right now. But we've been wrong before in the fantasy community, so I'm willing to be wrong again. Next guy here is Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee, 5'8", 200 pounds. Again, a little bit on the smaller side. Doesn't really bode well for the running back position. We've had a couple in the past on the smaller side of the things, and they kind of do well, but it's not a typical thing that happens. Did have 258 rush attempts for about 1,500 yards and 22 scores, which can't really laugh at that. 20 receptions for 143 yards, 5.8 yards per carry. Projected to go in your second or third, late second, early third of your dynasty rookie drafts. Been mostly comped to Tony Pollard and Raheem Mostert. Overall, I think he's, again, another one of these dart throw running backs that his value is going to be closely related to what team he is on and what opportunity he can get. I don't think he's going to burst onto the field and take away a job, but if he goes to a team that has a running back that's on the back nine, let's say the Minnesota Vikings, with Aaron Jones, I know they just signed him to an extension, but a little bit older, that's the kind of situation you want him to go to where he could get more opportunity. But if he goes to be a back where he gets most of the work, I don't think it's going to work out too well. What do you think on Sampson?
Yeah, no, I think you said it well as far as just overall just a dart throw. I mean, I think it's definitely a player that's going to need time to develop in the pro game. So for me, I'm if he lands in my lap in the late third, sure, I'll take him. But other than that, I'm not really interested.
All right. Do you think there's any player? How many first round running backs do you think we're gonna get this year?
Two.
Is that Jeanty and Henderson? Hampton, sorry.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
It would surprise me to see Henderson in there, but I think if there's going to be a third, it'd probably be him, just from whatever kind of like a 1, 2, 3 standpoint.
Agreed.
But I really I don't see it. I only can see really just the two. So
Yeah, this is definitely a draft class that if you're in need of a running back on your dynasty team, this is the draft to go acquire picks for and move around if you need to get the guy you want. I'm gonna link the show that Chris and I did about the dynasty draft tips because I think it's really going to help everyone out kind of navigating while you're in the draft as well as before, because in the draft, you're going to have a lot of decisions to make where you're selecting a guy that might not have the best landing spot and they might just be in a different situation. So definitely take a look at that video. If you have any questions, as always, you can reach out to us on the podcast. We're on socials. We're on YouTube. Obviously, because you're watching, you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you put a question in, we'll do a mailbag show, and maybe we'll do a Dynasty mailbag show when we get enough questions there. We're going to be doing some more things. So this wraps up all of our rookie position reviews. We're going to be doing some more mock drafts. We're going to do some Dynasty startup stuff. All of this is to get you ready for the season. If you're in a Dynasty league, you know there is no offseason. There is an offseason in the NFL, but in Dynasty, you're always thinking, what can I do to make my team better? How can I do this? There's a lot to do. And as a reminder, we have that contest. We can help you out in doing that. All you got to do is comment your favorite team name. It could be funny, it could be serious, whatever you want. We're excited to see what you come up with. We're here to answer any questions you have. We want everyone who's listening and watching to get better. We want to help you out and get the championship. It's all about getting the trophy in your house, apartment, wherever you are. We want to make sure you get that. So we've been doing this for a long time, and we want to kind of just bring our experience and knowledge into your world. So with that being said, we're going to jump out of here. We will be back with more shows shortly. If you could like, share, and subscribe, click the bell. You'll get notified when we have new episodes coming up. I think that's it. Anything to add, Rich?
Nope. Just excited for this draft. I'm really hoping to see some players go to some good landing spots so we can have a great draft upcoming.
Yes, and we have some surprises that we're working on behind the scenes. We'll be announcing those very, very shortly, so stay tuned. All right, everyone. So long, good luck, and have fun.
Peace out.